Very good evening and welcome to Primetime News here on TV1 for the Newsfirst team under Paldano, where the people come first. Now, before we head into your stories in more detail, let's first take a look at the headlines this evening.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Supreme Court permits to examine 4 petitions challenging public emergency. Court bans overseas travel for ex-Governor Cabral. People's protests continue. Pressure mounts on President to resign. President visits Parliament during crisis debate. Johnston says President will not resign and he will face the challenges. Political parties present alternatives.
අපිට යෝජනාවක් ඉදිරිපත් කළ හැකි වන්නේ ජනාධිපතිවරයා ඉවත් වෙන්න. අපි මේ අභියෝගය අපේ දෝතින් අපි බාරගනිමු. අපේ හර්ෂද සිල්වා වගේ മന്ത്രിවරයෙක් රටේ ජනාධිපතිවරයා කරලා හරි මේ රටේ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳන්න.
Sri Lankan rupee plummets further, hits 320 per dollar.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Political parties in Parliament this week didn't back calls by opposition parliamentarian M.A. Sumandiran for a vote on the emergency laws. Against such a backdrop, the Supreme Court today granted leave to proceed for 4 petitions challenging the state of emergency and the curfew imposed recently.
4 petitions had been filed challenging the state of emergency and the curfew that was imposed in the country. The petitions were filed by journalists Royal Raymond and Rasika Jayakodi, human rights activist Sashi Vincent and Moratua Municipal Councillor Lihini Fernando. They were taken up in the presence of Justices Murda Fernando, L.T. Dehidiniya and Mahinda Samyawardana today. The Supreme Court today granted leave to proceed for the petitions to examine whether the regulations had violated the fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution. The petitions are to be taken up from the 15th of July. Making submissions in court, counsels for the petitioners, including President's Counsel M.A. Sumandiran, argued that the fundamental rights of the people had been violated. The President's Counsel pointed out that the decision to impose a state of emergency was arbitrary and that it must be imposed for the welfare of the people and not to suppress public opinion. He argued that the decision to impose a state of emergency and curfew and also ban social media had been withdrawn as these measures had failed. The President's Counsel told court that using a powerful provision of the law for a failed cause does not set a good precedent.
The President's promulgation of emergency on the 1st of April, his declaration of making an order of curfew for the 3rd of April, and the blocking of social media sites on the 3rd of April were challenged by number of petitioners in court today. Court heard submissions and has granted leave to proceed and has fixed a matter for hearing on the 15th of July 2022. The challenge was against the promulgation of emergency.
The President's Secretary, Defence Secretary, Telecommunications Regulatory Authority, IGP and the Attorney General are among the respondents named in the petition. The Colombo Magistrates Court issued an order preventing ex-Central Bank Governor Ajit Newad Cabral from travelling overseas. Ajit Newad Cabral was also issued summons to appear in court on the 18th of April. The order was issued by Colombo Additional Magistrate Harshana Kakanwala upon considering an application filed by former Provincial Governor Kirti Tenakon. The application charged Cabral for abusing public funds during his tenure as the Governor of the Central Bank. President's Counsel Maitri Gunaratne and Attorney at Law Gunaratne Waninayake appeared on behalf of the plaintiff.
A team of 25 lawyers managed to suspend his overseas travel. Therefore, he cannot flee overseas. The Controller of Immigration and Immigration was also notified of this. We will be attempting to suspend overseas travel for all those who looted public funds.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka has called upon the President and the members of Parliament, both in government and the opposition, to act as statesmen in the country's hour of need. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka is strongly of the view that any solution to the present crisis has to be found within the framework of the democratic constitutional structure. The release adds that any solution outside the framework of the constitution will lack legitimacy and would be open to challenge within the legal system. The new central bank governor and the new finance secretary were appointed this evening. Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe was appointed as the new governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka today. The President's Media Division said he received the letter of appointment from President Gotabaya Rajapaksa this evening. At the same time, KMM Siriwardana was appointed as the new finance secretary.
The shortage of diesel is one issue that has arisen due to the foreign currency crisis in the country. Long queues for fuel were seen at filling stations today as well, although authorities claim that there are enough stocks. A scuffle broke out at a filling station in Ampara, alleging that fuel stocks are being hoarded. The police had to intervene to resolve the problem. Farmers in Higurane held a demonstration citing that they haven't been able to engage in cultivations using their machinery as they haven't been able to purchase diesel. The Ampara-Monragala main road was blocked for several hours due to the protest. A long queue was seen in Anuradhapura today. The authorities and the people are expressing contradictory views. The people are saying that the system should be changed, but the authorities are making minor changes. People have been affected due to the shortage of diesel in Polonnaruwa. Our children will have to be in hunger for the New Year festival. I have been pumping diesel since I bought a vehicle. Are we purchasing diesel on credit or are we stealing it? This crisis was created in the country. The shortage of diesel has affected Badulla, Haliela and Walimada as well. A protest was held by obstructing the Badulla-Kalamu main road. People who haven't been able to purchase diesel for about 7 days held a protest by blocking the Walimada-Udupussalawa road opposite a filling station in Ambagasduwa. Long queues for gas were seen in many areas today as well. Our cameras captured the situation at a gas dealership store at the Mathura town this morning. The continued depreciation of the rupee has landed a heavy blow on the country's economy. Today, the US dollar is selling at 320 rupees at commercial banks. Official data show that the Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated by 58% in a month from the 8th of March. The depreciation has caused a shortage in goods and even caused prices to skyrocket in the market. Frustrated citizens are now taking to the streets against the unbearable cost of living. However, elected public representatives are debating party politics in Parliament. This raises questions on whether authorities can resolve the problems faced by the people. For more than a year, the central bank capped the exchange rate of the US dollar at 202 rupees, ignoring calls by economists to allow it to float. The then central bank governor Ajit Niwad Cabral and finance minister Basil Rajapaksa had reiterated that Sri Lanka wouldn't face a problem of foreign exchange. However, the end result was catastrophic. Sri Lanka's foreign reserves that stood at $8 billion when the government came to power has now dropped to about $1.9 billion. What caused Sri Lanka's reserves to decline? The COVID-19 pandemic struck Sri Lanka in early 2020, crippling several revenue-generating industries. How well the responsible authorities managed the economy as they began easing restrictions in 2021 remains a question. Sri Lanka generated $12.5 billion in export earnings last year. However, $20.6 billion had been spent on imports during that period. The deficit in the trade balance was $8.1 billion. But why did Sri Lanka incur such a high import bill? Official data show that about $6 billion had been spent to import fuel, food and medicines. The remaining $15 billion had been spent for the imports. The government decided to curtail the expenditure on non-essential imports only at the beginning of this year. The decision was made as the country's foreign reserves slid to about $2 billion. Even amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, Sri Lanka received $7.1 billion in workers' remittances in 2020. However, this dropped to $5.5 billion in 2021. The drop in workers' remittances of about $2 billion was attributed to the cap on the low exchange rate. These restrictions prompted expatriate workers to remit money to the country through informal channels. Although Sri Lanka receives about $600 million in workers' remittances monthly, this had dropped to about $259 million. Wouldn't have authorities been able to prevent this situation if the central bank had allowed the exchange rate to float? As Sri Lanka's foreign reserves began depleting, the government had to seek assistance from other nations to repay its debt. Those in responsible positions ignored calls by economic experts to seek the assistance of the International Monetary Fund to avert a crisis. They even outlined a 6-month roadmap for the economy. Although the government used its reserves and loans from foreign nations that ran up to $4.8 billion to repay its debt last year, the situation this year is different. What is the reason for the worsening crisis? Sri Lanka has to repay around $7 billion in debt this year. Authorities settled a $500 million international sovereign bond in January. However, another $1 billion international sovereign bond is to be settled in June. Sri Lanka also has to pay $925 million for Sri Lanka development bonds. Will Sri Lanka be able to pay its debt using its existing foreign reserves that stand at about $1.7 billion? The Sri Lankan rupee continues to depreciate after the central bank allowed the exchange rate to float in March. The continued depreciation of the rupee has caused the cost of goods to skyrocket in the market. This has even resulted in the shortage of fuel, gas cylinders, milk powder, medicines and other essentials. The situation prompted people to launch a mass wave of protests across the country. The government, which remained upbeat on its policies, has now decided to seek the assistance of the International Monetary Fund. Sri Lanka's finance minister should fly to Washington to hold talks with the IMF next Monday. However, there is no finance minister in the country at present. The Financial Times newspaper has reported that the Sri Lankan rupee is now the worst performing currency in the world. The Asian Development Bank has also projected the country's economic growth to drop to 2.4% this year. Shouldn't attention be paid to resolve this problem that is worsening by the day?
Sri Lanka is heading into a serious issue with a shortage of essential pharmaceuticals. In order to avert a crisis situation, Sri Lankan authorities have reached out to international organizations for aid assistance. The State Ministry of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals noted that there is a shortage of around 140 essential medicines and life-saving drugs. Among them is the medicine that is essential for blood clot treatment.
There's a serious shortage of medicine in the country. We might face serious situations after the April holidays. Government hospitals are facing a shortage. The situation at the Maharagama Cancer Hospital is appalling. It appears that the government wants them to die.
We are facing a shortage of 5 life-saving drugs. We received 2 of them. This issue has arisen because we can't issue letters of credit. We have issued letters of credit worth $14 million and it will take at least a month or 2 for the medicines to arrive in the country. We ask the doctors to only perform emergency surgeries. We inform the World Health Organization, World Bank, Asian Development Bank and the Red Cross about this shortage that we are facing. We are doing our best to manage the shortage of medicines in our hospitals. Doctors organized protests in several areas opposing the medical crisis in the country. One protest was held opposite the Colombo National Hospital, criticizing the government for its failure to resolve the issues in the health sector.
The healthcare system is facing a shortage of medicine due to the shortage of dollars. There's a shortage of more than 200 drugs at present. There's also a shortage of more than 5,000 medical equipments in the country as well. We are unable to conduct even a lab test. This has affected medical procedures. The people's lives are in peril. The government doesn't seem to care about this. There's a threat that we might lose out on the medical equipment donated to our country. The World Health Organization, UNICEF, the UN and other donors are reluctant to make donations. There's a possibility that we might lose our membership in the World Health Organization. That will leave us in a dangerous position.
Doctors at the Mahayangana Base Hospital held a protest today. They demanded solutions to the issues that have affected the healthcare system.
They have cut down funds for the healthcare system. This is a serious problem for patients. We are asking them to cut down expenses on unnecessary expenditures and to use them for the healthcare system. The healthcare system will collapse if this continues for the next 2 weeks. People will lose their lives. There is a risk that the deaths will surpass that of the COVID-19 pandemic.
New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern says she is monitoring the situation in Sri Lanka at present. She was questioned by reporters on whether she would condemn the actions of the Sri Lankan government.
Look, I have been, as many will have been, observing what's been happening in Sri Lanka and the incredibly tumultuous period of time that they are in at present. I am awaiting a further briefing from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade as to the domestic political situation. In terms of the foreign policy implications for New Zealand, that's where I am looking to receive an additional briefing over the coming 24 hours.
Protests are being held across the country demanding a solution to the rising issues in the country. We begin our coverage at the Liberty Roundabout in Colombo.
Enough is what the people of Sri Lanka have to say right now. Currently, I'm here in Kolpiti as a people's protest is currently being staged here at the Lipton Roundabout, blocking the entrance to the temple trees. Now, what these people have to say is that they need a change. They are requesting for a new government, a solution to the crisis that they are currently facing. This is the voice of the people.
We're all here at Temple Trees, united together as Sri Lankans. We're here to demand real democracy, accountability. We don't just want these toxic individuals that plague our government out. We also want to restructure the whole system that stands on the pillars of greed and corruption.
This government came to the power. They started from the sugar and the cooking oil and gully, this corruption. And after that, the rice mafia and petrol, diesel and the foodstuff and heavy troublesome for the public. The public is demanding for the cost of living.
I just want to say I saw in Parliament today that they were saying people have held us at gunpoint to be here. I have no party bias, but as a Sri Lankan, I am here. And I want a change and I want the Rajapaksas out of here.
Protesters attempted to enter the road leading to Temple Trees. However, barricades had been set up to prevent the protesters from moving forward.
Newsfirst also met with protesters who gathered outside the Nellumpokuna Theatre in Colombo.
matter. What matters right now is that we all fight together. And more than us, we need to think about the future generations. And that is why we must make a stand right now, because it's now or never.
There is a major political crisis in Sri Lanka at the moment. Right now I'm in Nelumpokona Junction and the people have come together. These people do not belong to any political party. These people are independent individuals. They are demanding the president plus the 225 members of the parliament to resign immediately to make way for a better Sri Lanka. I'm Nisal Suryarachi reporting for News First.
The United Nations has welcomed the lifting of the state of emergency in Sri Lanka.
UN Resident Coordinator in Sri Lanka, Hannah Singer, noted that the UN stands by the rule of law and the right to peaceful assembly and welcomes the lifting of the state of emergency in Sri Lanka. She said in a statement, quote, "We encourage parties to work towards a peaceful resolution to the crisis that will allow for the country to focus on the urgent steps needed for the economic recovery."
Reporters Without Borders has urged the Sri Lankan government to allow the media to do its job as it would help in resolving the crisis in the country.
Reporters Without Borders said the government's undeclared goal of blocking social media recently was suppressing news and information. In a statement, the media rights group said many reporters trying to cover protests have been subjected to violent obstruction by police officers. Daniel Bastard, the head of the Asia-Pacific desk of Reporters Without Borders, said he calls for journalists to be allowed to cover the protests freely. He said the attacks against them are unacceptable.
University students, lecturers and non-academic staff supported the people's protest today as well.
The lecturers, academic and non-academic staff of the Bhikshu University of Sri Lanka in Anuradhapura engaged in a silent protest today. The theme of this protest was centered around the economic pressure on the people. Medical faculty students from the University of Rajarata protested this afternoon. They protested by marching from the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital to the Anuradhapura new bus stand. The lecturers, non-academic staff and university students from the Open University in Navala engaged in a protest march this afternoon. They marched from the Open University premises to the Nugegoda town. The protesters pointed out that the present administration must immediately take measures to solve the economic crisis. The lecturers and non-academic staff of the University College of Mathura protested on the Mathura-Akurasa main road this afternoon against the present administration. The protest was organized by the Mathura branch of the Federation of University Associations. Avert the present crisis. They protested in the Kuliapitiya town and also marched along the Kuliapitiya-Pannala road.
A protest was staged today by teachers belonging to the Bibila Mathakama division, voicing their objection towards the government. They marched from the Bibila Monragala junction to the Bibila bus stand.
For the past few days, these people are having fun in the parliament, which is similar to a pigsty. They discuss only about their problems to secure their power. No one is discussing about the solutions for the actual problems. So this is enough. It is time that all the 225 members of the parliament to step out. Stop changing the members of parliament and ministers like shuffling the same pack of cards just to get your vehicles, petrol and other comforts. Stop this and go home. Once you go home, the public servants and professionals will come together to bring a new administration to this country.
Lawyers organized a protest in Kantale demanding the resignation of the government. They marched from opposite the Kantale Magistrates Court towards the Kantale town.
It was the people who gave the power to this government. If the people want them to step down, they should go home. As lawyers, we will stand with the people to uphold the constitution of the country.
Lawyers at the Balangore Magistrate Court organized a silent demonstration today.
Today this country has fallen to a state where all people are on the roads. If the rulers are not ready to listen to the people's mandate, the professionals and citizens should definitely take to the street and fight against it. This is our right. Lawyers also organized a demonstration in Horana today.
The trade union and multilateral organizations collective protested opposite the Fort railway station this evening to drive away the government and empower the people. The government is engaged in various schemes in the presence of the people. They want the president to remain. This is all a charade. This wave started in the cities due to the electricity, gas and essential goods crisis. Then this wave spread to the villages due to the rising cost of living. Today it has reached the trade unions and working people can't bear this. They are prepared for a struggle. Today President Gotabaya Rajapaksa visited Parliament and left immediately. We can see that he is scared. We asked them to leave soon, but after returning every single cent that they looted. We are aware that they used the Attorney General to withdraw cases. That conspiracy was clear to us.
News First with the people.
We're going in for a short commercial break. Stay tuned for more of the very latest.
Tech Bus, launched to increase the tech know-how of Sri Lankan students, concludes on a successful note. Organized by Slit Institute.
Tech Bus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University, challenging convention and redefining education. නිවෙස පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ Islam Inside. Islam ජීවයයි ජලයයි ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back to the news. Many protests are taking place across the country against social pressure, the spiral economy and the emergence of the culture of queues.
When Parliament sessions were on today, people were protesting at the Puldua junction that is located close to Parliament. Parliament Road was closed by the Sri Lanka police using roadblocks and security was tightened in the vicinity as well. Artists and civil organizations also took part in this protest.
Not only
Gota go home, Mahinda Rajapaksa must also leave. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Basil Rajapaksa, Nama Rajapaksa and everyone must leave. We need an alternative in Parliament. The country cannot move ahead like this. The Rajapaksas are a group that cannot even operate a small store. The entire country knows that they are a weak bunch of thieves.
The people who have stepped out are those who are showing no regard to their own personal safety or even their professions. We need proper administration and we need proper leaders. We need a governance structure that will stand by the people without a dictatorship. It is Padaniya who created the fertilizer mess. The people have nothing to eat. Where is he? Farmers were compelled to step out. Where is he hiding? If those who obtained the public mandate cannot perform, they must leave when the people tell them to leave. Please leave.
Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa visited Parliament today. The President entered the chamber at around 10:15 in the morning and listened to the comments being made during the Parliament debate and left moments later.
Most parliamentarians expressed their views regarding party politics in Parliament today. We have a condition to support the proposals that are being put forward. The condition is that the President, who is at the centre of the people's problems, should be removed. The people aren't willing to accept any interim government or any other administration set up within or outside the framework of the Constitution as long as the current President is in power. We are willing to consider any proposal that is being put forward, but we will support those proposals on the condition that the President, who is at the heart of all the worries, resigns from his position. We are ready to negotiate any proposal under this condition. I wish to remind him that the President won't resign. We are ready to face your ulterior objectives. We are trying to act in a democratic way. We know what you are up to. I am telling this to you directly. We won't give revolutionists a place here. We are inviting you to form a government. The opposition leader brought forward good proposals during our first meeting. You also spoke at that meeting. The government was appointed with the people's votes. If you are asking a president who received the votes of 6.9 million people to resign, then that goes beyond the Constitution. No one is willing to act beyond the Constitution. I am telling your party to refrain from committing destruction and attacking the two parties here. If we are to go for an election, we can discuss and decide on a date. But I am requesting to unite and resolve all the problems of the people who are suffering. Was it we or the Parliament that caused the problems in the country? The Executive President made an ad hoc decision to ban chemical fertilizer. Farmers lost half of their harvest as a result. The decision has been made now. It seems that you are supporting them slightly. The Executive President weakened the powers of the Parliament and is now seeking help. I regret to see that you are part of those involved in weakening the Parliament. We must learn lessons from India. They apologize to the farmers. Our President can follow that example. He must apologize to the people first for causing these difficulties. Otherwise, I am requesting to at least bring back the 19th Amendment. The opposition will submit a proposal to abolish the Executive Presidency soon. During meetings in and outside the cabinet, I said that we should have gone to the IMF a year earlier. The ban on social media was revoked. There was objection even from our end. The state of emergency was also revoked. It is good for democracy. The entire cabinet has resigned. The President invited all of you to form an interim government. We invited Mr. Harsha to take over this role. We invited him because he expressed willingness to support us. The presidency was chosen by the people. If this continues, who will bear responsibility if the ministers resign as well? This is strange. We fell into this crisis because of the government's incompetency. If you say that you were aware of a looming crisis, why wasn't action taken? Your side is challenging us to form a caretaker government. We won't shy away from that. We are ready. Let us discuss what can be done. But the problem here is that the people are insisting that Gota go home. We will be able to discuss and fill that vacancy. We can find an interim solution. Let's discuss about that.
Honorable SP Dissanayake, you have 10 minutes.
The so-called hero who works for the people was brought to the Parliament. They got some encouragement by bringing him here. But no one is looking at things realistically. The hero who works for the people has tightened security around Yanaka's house in Anuradhapura. Now they are admitting their incompetency. They hurt the minority communities in the past. Did your side even listen to the grievances of people like Ali Sabri at that time? They are asking us to show a majority with 113 seats. Is this how they should be conducting themselves at that time? They are going to the International Monetary Fund. The ugly American tabled a proposal in cabinet outlining the reason why we shouldn't go to the IMF. He wanted to allow the crisis to aggravate so that he can gain political advantage of it. His plan was to force Gotabaya Rajapaksa out of office and to gain the powers of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa as well. The government hasn't won the confidence of the international community. We must form an interim government. All political parties should be represented in that. I express my regret to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa because his image has been tarnished due to the activities of the ugly American. Some are proposing to form an interim government, but there is no unity on your side to do that. I know that the President had personally contacted Harshadi Silva. He had contacted some others as well, but everyone is refusing to accept that role. That is because your side would be able to achieve your political objectives only as long as the crisis exists. We came to Parliament in the name of the Prime Minister. All of us said that this administration must be run together by Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa. Many say that they want to remain independent and then sit in the government. The people are now holding the Rajapaksas accountable for the wealth that has been stolen from the country. That is why they are saying go home Gota and go home Rajapaksa. This is a country where there is a paper shortage to print polling cards. There is no electricity to count votes. There is no diesel to transport ballot boxes. The country must be stabilized if we are to go for an election at a time when people are furious. We will accept this challenge. We should accept this. If the President doesn't resign, there are other constitutional provisions to remove him from office. The Parliament has the powers to take away his financial powers under Article 148 if he doesn't listen to the people. There are provisions to remove the Prime Minister as well if he doesn't listen to the people. They say that the President won't resign with the Constitution on their side. Change the Constitution and remove the President. Abolish the executive presidency. Appoint someone like Dr. Harshadi Silva as the President and try to resolve the problems in the country. We are ready to join hands for that regardless of our party differences. It would be worth it if we can unite and make decisions. Otherwise, that shows how corrupt they are. We are ready to rally around any political leader in the future.
You know, people are holding placards all over the country simply because they don't have a voice in the parliament. The people who do have a voice in the parliament are holding placards. That is a very senseless thing to do, in my opinion. I don't think we are talking about things that need to be spoken about. We are just delaying the inevitable, and that inevitable being people's lives at stake, you know, the economy at stake. Even now we are still playing the blame game, and it is exactly why people are out on the streets. You must understand the sentiments of the people. When they say go home Gota, they don't mean just the President. They don't mean just the Rajapakshas. They mean all the members of Parliament sitting here right now. Because all of us have failed at our duty. We have failed to address ourselves with the public sentiment.
News First with the people.
We're going in for another short commercial break. Stay tuned for more of the very latest.
Tech Bus, launched to increase the tech know-how of Sri Lankan students, concludes on a successful note. Organised by Slit Institute.
Tech Bus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University. Challenging convention and redefining education.
Welcome back to the news. A feasible solution to the people's problems was not reached in Parliament today as well. Many opposition parliamentarians were seen attending protests in several areas.
Opposition parliamentarian Nalin Bandara attended a protest in Binguria today.
We heard that many parliamentarians from our party are not in parliament. They are in villages. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who didn't attend yesterday's sitting, has come to parliament today, but he hasn't spoken. Luckily for him, we weren't in parliament. I would have told him directly, Gota, go home. I challenge him to attend sittings tomorrow. Let's see how we deal with it.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa took part in a protest that was organised in the Thalawakele town. The Tamil Progressive Alliance and estate workers took part in this protest. The protesters marched to the Thalawakele public grounds.
රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයා වහාම ඉල්ලා අස්විය යුතුයි. මේ ආණ්ඩුව
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa must step down immediately. This government must resign. That is the view of a majority of the people in this country. Therefore, listen to the people and resign without destroying the country any further. Yesterday, a local authority chairman representing the government challenged the people to attack them. And this is my message to them. The people don't like altercations, suppression, violence or crimes. The people look for compassion. I wish to tell that local body chairman not to intimidate the people for no reason. If they want a clash, let it be via a people's mandate. We are ready for that.
බොරුවට මැරකමින් ඔට්ටු වෙන්න එපා. ඔට්ටු වෙන්න ඕන නම් අපි සූදානම් ජන සම්මතවාදයෙන් ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයෙන් ඔට්ටු වෙන්න අපි සූදානම්.
A group of activists from the Samagi Vanitha Balawegaya, including Hirnika Premachandra, participated in a protest near the Athuragiriya clock tower today. Tensions arose after a group, including a Buddhist monk, attempted to obstruct the protesters.
We wish to tell the people that this is Gotabaya's plan. They are trying to incite racism amidst these protests and cause conflicts between the people. These are the steps they are taking to end these protests. We love our religion and country. We are taking steps to chase away people like Gotabaya Rajapaksa from this country because we love this country.
Moving on to some international news. Pakistan's Supreme Court has ruled a move to block the vote of no confidence to oust Prime Minister Imran Khan as unconstitutional. The court also reversed the decision by the President to dissolve Parliament and restoring the cabinet and Khan as Prime Minister. The 5-judge bench also said Parliament must reconvene and hold the no confidence vote on Saturday. And with that, we wrap up primetime news here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk, where the people come first. For the Newsfirst team, I'm David Paldano, along with our sign interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz. Take care and good night.